It's Michelle Cottle here with Alfred Rascon, recipient of the Medal of Honor. And you've just finished an interesting discussion here about honor and duty and your experience. And so this just segues right into what everybody's been talking about, including here at the summit, the scandals that are going on with General Petraeus and the culture of the military. And I wanted to talk to you about, just what you thought when you heard this, because obviously you're kind of really familiar with how these kind of situations develop and kind of what people think when this stuff happens.
Well, it's ironic we bring this thing to my attention at this time. I think the thing that really falls into one fundamental question that a lot of people don't ask is integrity. And that's the fundamental question. I was a director of the Selective Service, which is a sub-cabinet position. And that level's pretty high. You're nominated by the president and you have to be approved by the Senate. And also being a former inspector general investigating fraud, waste, and abuse, and being an Army officer, but being just a good citizen. You get involved with some fine, minor little issues about, is it okay for you to have somebody above you to become an adulterer? And you expect them to come back and lead you? I don't think so. And I think that's a fundamental question we've had here, and a lot of people have not answered that. They come back and say, well, yeah, in fact, there was a congressperson, I will not name her, but immediately when the scandal came into being, that person came back and made a statement that it was maybe all right for that person to stay in that position. To me, that was completely uncalled for and not a very professional thing to say. Because for somebody to commit adultery, you're a leader of that organization. And I don't think others would expect you to do that and expect you to say it's okay. It wouldn't work that way. First of all, you're a leader, you lead by example. And I don't think it would be proper for others that are in that position to do the same thing. Then you forget about the fact that there are other people who are involved in issues like that. The third persons, the husbands and the wives, the children, we forget about those. You end up with newscasters who publicly came on and said that it was all right for him to have that affair. Go back and think what would happen if somebody was married and that was that newscaster who happened to have had that incident. I'm sure that person wouldn't be saying that. It's easy for them to speak, but until it happens to them, go back and look at your own, hen house.
Now, this is a question about this sort of culture. Do you think that there's an elevated risk because you do have these people who, it's the cult of the military. They get really, these groupies almost, get really fascinated by men in power, and the men in power get their heads turned. I mean, how do you police that sort of thing?
Well, it's fairly simple. You have to have it within yourself to have that integrity, to have that moral character. If you don't have it, that's already a shortcoming. Being a Medal of Honor recipient, you end up being in the hen house also, because everybody wants to talk to you, everybody wants to hold your hand, everybody wants to come back, date you, take you, or whatever.
This would be a great recruiting tool.
I doubt it. But again, we're put in the same situation. And you have to realize the fact that you're doing something for your country. Simple. Also, you have to realize that a lot of individuals that are in capacity of leading this country, you can't waver either way. You have to lead diddle up the middle, and it's fairly simple. Also, if you are working for the intelligence community, which I'm very familiar with, I was with the intelligence community for a little bit over 20 years, working in counterintelligence, the human side of the house. I was a case officer for many years. So I know about these things. But also, at times, there are things called lifestyle polygraphs that are given to individuals. And what happens when somebody comes back and ends up lying? They're going to get caught sooner or later. But to me, it ends up being a very simple issue. It ends up being a moral issue.
Do you think that in an organization like the military or the intelligence community, morale is hurt even more than in the broader population when something like this happens?
Well, I'm sure it is, because again, it's a very close-knit family. And you know everybody not on a first-hand basis, but you know who they are by the fact that somebody's up in that chain of command. And you end up with a lot of perceptions. Sometimes, oh, this guy is great, this woman's great. And sometimes they're not. Sometimes they end up with egos that are bigger than, 10 houses. And they live by that. They end up being able to survive by that, and this is how they make what they want to be. Look at all the ribbons I can put on my chest. Look how pretty I look. And that happens, okay? But then you have a lot of other individuals that take it very calmly in a very collective manner. They get on with their lives, and they continue.
Now, one of the arguments I've heard about just how devastating this sort of thing is talking about wives, military spouses. You want to address kind of the importance of that and why that's such an issue?
And what manner?
When something like this happens. I mean, you're talking about kind of how hurtful it is for the organizations, but then you also have to take into consideration like how much military spouses.
Oh, no, but that's a very good point, and that's what I was trying to make before, is the fact that we forget about that quiet third person, or that unknown person who ends up being a spouse, whether it ends up being a male or female. They're hurt. And for somebody to come back in a news media or somebody from the Congress to say it's okay, hey, what about the other person who was hurt? You forget about them? It doesn't work that way. And again, it ends up being something where somebody is hurt. You're going to hurt somebody no matter what. And you end up with individuals who own up to the fact, hey, listen, I made a mistake, I never should have done it, and I'm leaving the government or I'm leaving the service. Good for you. Then you end up with other individuals, what the hell, I did it, I'm never going to get caught, I'm cool. Then you do get caught. Then you end up, then what happens then?
Well, I just want to thank you so much for stopping by. Great presentation. Enjoy the rest of the summit, and thanks for joining us.